Tottenham Hotspur put in a statement performance in those first 80 minutes. They were causing PSG a lot of problems, and it looked like it was going to be a big statement win from Tottenham. But you can never rule PSG out when they've got that much individual quality. They were the Champions League winners, and PSG get 2 goals late to make it 2-2. And the narrative will now be Tottenham have bottled it. Tottenham have bottled it, which, to be honest, they did bottle it. But to be honest, I think there's a lot to talk about from that match. A lot of things that we learned. So today's video is going to be a breakdown of what we've learned from Tottenham 2, PSG 2, because I think there's a lot of positives for Tottenham to take. It's going to hurt. It's going to sting. You were 2-0 up. You lost on penalties. You deserved to win. And it's one of those situations where you were the better team, but PSG had the better players. And sometimes the better players can just win the games in those final moments. But Tottenham, I thought, were really good. I think the subs is what cost Tottenham. I think Tell and Solanke, particularly Solanke, I was very disappointed with him. They just weren't holding up the ball, offering anything compared to what Kudus and Richarlison did, holding the ball, the fight, the work rate, the whole just mentality there. I just felt that Tell and Solanke were just not offering anything. And in those final 15 minutes, obviously, Palhinha comes off, who ran his socks in. Palhinha and Bentancur just ran their socks in, and Bentancur was left on his own. Palhinha ran his socks in, and he was subbed off. But the Palhinha, the Kudus, and the Richarlison subs just changed that game. I get why he took them off, but you had Kudus, who was, you couldn't push Kudus off the ball, and he was winning it back. And Richarlison, for all his faults, he's a mentality monster. You don't want to come up against him sometimes in these big kind of finals. And Palhinha, off the ball, that's what he was brought in for. There's limitations on the ball, but these kind of games is off the ball. Look, Sarr was my man of the match. We're going to talk about Sarr. I want to talk about Thomas Frank because I felt like, just talking from this game, Thomas Frank set up Tottenham well. He made Tottenham hard to beat. But it was just 2 moments at the end. I think Tottenham switched off. They got pinned back by PSG. Solanke and Tell were not offering anything, holding on the ball. So they kept giving the ball away, got pinned back, and PSG found a breakthrough. But I think it was a very encouraging performance from Tottenham. So I'm going to break that down. So first of all, I think other than the subs, and look, nobody expected Thomas Frank to win that game. Nobody expected Tottenham to win that game. Let's be totally honest. I think the fact that Tottenham went 2-0 up and played that well to then not win is a huge blow, and it will feel like a huge loss for Tottenham. But I think the way that Tottenham set up and the way that Tottenham played and performed surprised me. I didn't think Tottenham were going to win that game. I thought Tottenham were going to lose. I never thought they were going to get battered. But I didn't think they'd be 2-0 up. I'll tell you that. And I didn't think that, and it's not just that Tottenham were 2-0 up, they played well. And Tottenham were the better team for a good 70 minutes of the game. And Thomas Frank's game plan was correct. It was defensive. It was 5 at the back, But he knows he can't go toe-to-toe with PSG technically. In possession, if you play a possession game, you're going to get battered by PSG. You cannot go toe-to-toe with PSG technically. And one of the reasons I've always brought back to when Newcastle beat PSG 4-1, it was a different PSG side, was because Newcastle just physically got at them. And that's what Thomas Frank went to do with Bentancur and Palhinha. And that's how I think Man United struggled against you in all the league games last season, because United just don't have the best physical players in the middle of the park. And you went physical. Sarr is a pressing monster. Sarr was causing Vitinha a lot of issues. Palhinha, the physicalness of Palhinha there with Bentancur, that midfield three was covering so much ground, was so relentless that the technicality of PSG's midfield could not cope. And Tottenham were winning those battles. He picked an athletic, hard to break down, hard-working 11. And, we talk about Ange's team being easy to run through and open up. Until the 82nd minute, Vicario only had one save to make until the 82nd minute because Tottenham were well-disciplined tactically. And it was more adaptable than Ange, and there was defensive structure, and he was profiling players correctly. He was profiling Sarr to his biggest strengths. Pressing, playing him higher up, letting him be a monster that runs the ground. Everybody knows that Pap Sarr reminds me a little bit of Dominic Szoboszlai. Can score good goals outside the box, is a good ball carrier, but he's someone that in the big games you'll always want on the pitch because nobody can run more than him, nobody can work harder than him, nobody can press harder than him. And that's what Sarr did today. I thought he was excellent. But the thing is, PSG have this quality. No offence to Matisse Tell, but if you've got a choice of, Barcola, Dembele, Gonzalo Ramos, Desiree Doué, and Kvaratskhelia Hello as your 5 attacking options, and you can bring on Goncalo Ramos and Barcola, or you're bringing on Matisse Tell or Solanke. I think, Matisse Tell's young. I think he's got a high ceiling. Solanke, he's come back from injury. There's a difference there. Had Eze been on the pitch, had Savinho been options, Spurs could do well. I do think under Thomas Frank, and my Premier League predictions will be coming out tomorrow, and I have to say, there's a part of me who wants to re-record my Premier League predictions and put Tottenham a position higher now, because I currently put Villa above Tottenham, and I want to change it and put Tottenham above Villa now. I don't know if I'm going to be bothered to change that. We'll see when they come out tomorrow. I don't think I'm going to have time to re-record them. But I just look at Tottenham and I looked at the defensive discipline, the way they were set up. I was impressed. And I think, if Thomas Frank needs individual quality, he doesn't have that. Kudus, Premier League proven signing, showed the individual quality today. He needs more of that. Give him Savinho, give him Eze. And yeah, Thomas Frank can cook. So let's talk about Kudus and then we'll talk about Sarr. So, Kudus in that first half, most chances created 2. Most dribbles 2, with 100% success. Most duels won 5. People talked about Kudus in a bad way, as if there was a bad attitude and a bad work rate. The guy's a monster. The guy is so strong. You cannot push him off the ball. Like, he's most foul player, 100% crosses, tackle success. He was winning the ball back. He was pushing people off the ball. PSG could not cope with the physicality of Mohamed Kudus. He was bullying people. He was pushing people off the ball. He tore into Nuno Mendes. Dribbling, strength, couldn't get him off the ball. His ability to get the ball, even in central areas, and carry it. He can operate wide, he can operate centrally, but he is a monster ball carrier. Brennan Johnson might be able to score goals, but I don't know what else Brennan Johnson can do, because he can't get the ball and take on his man like Kudus can. When Kudus gets the ball, he sometimes gets you off your feet. Just his ability to get the ball, win it back, keep the ball, drive it forward. He was there. Richarlison had a good game, Kudus had a good game, and then those two guys coming off, it made a big difference. Kudus, you just can't push him off the ball. He's just so glued to that ball. Strong ball carrier, physically good, got stuck in, and it was the physicality. Where PSG struggled is they couldn't match Tottenham physically. Sarr, Bentancur, Palhinha, they were running and running and running, and PSG had all the technical ability, but they can't keep up with all that running and running and running. You look at other stuff, you look at, Kudus and Richarlison being a nuisance. It was causing PSG issues. Jed Spence was doing really well in his 1v1s and his duels. Mickey van der Ven, Danzo, Romero, I think up until right at the end, really good performances there. I think Danzo made a really good block at the end, and I think Danzo suits a back three really well. It was the physical side. But the man of the match, it has to be Sarr. Like, he has to be the man of the match. I thought he was incredible. Covered huge ground, just pressed and pressed and pressed. Man marked Vitinha out the game. He was unbelievable. Made 4 interceptions, 9 recoveries, 10 out of 14 passes completed, 100% aerial duels won. Didn't do loads on the ball, but in games where you're not going to dominate a ball, there's not a better player than Sarr. He reminds me of Szoboszlai. It's off the ball, his movement, his box runs, his off the ball pressing, work rate ability make him so important. Dominic Szoboszlai is almost underrated because maybe he could improve in certain areas on the ball. Maybe he could get involved more. Maybe you could say something about Sarr. But off the ball, when there's a big game, they always are the best players. You look at Szoboszlai's contributions for Liverpool in the biggest games last season, and I just see a little bit of Sarr in that. And when he gets the ball, he's a good ball carrier, so he'll drive forward. But he was just making sure Vitinha, whoever was in midfield, just wasn't having any space on the ball. He was closing them down. He was there. He was just creating chaos, pressing. And I honestly think, since I've watched Tottenham in pre-season, I didn't watch all your pre-season games, but under Thomas Frank so far, and the season hasn't really started, it's a Super Cup game in pre-season, but I think Sarr has been your best midfielder. And I think we saw Sarr in Ange's first season, we saw his quality. I think in his second season, he was inconsistent, but 1, he was overplayed, 2, he got injured, and 3, there was an unstable environment with a lot of injured players around him, and he wasn't platformed correctly. But one thing Thomas Frank will do is he knows that Sarr isn't a 6. He knows that Sarr does his best work being an advanced 8, playing further forward, pressing, doing off the ball movement. And what Thomas Frank was doing was he was using Sarr in his best role to his biggest strengths perfectly. And I think Thomas Frank will really get the best out of Sarr. But let's continue on into notes, because I said we need to talk about Thomas Frank in this video, and I do want to talk about Thomas Frank. Defensive structure. Thomas Frank, unlike Ange, actually prioritizes defensive structure, shape, compactness, physical duels to make his team hard to beat. And we saw that today. He works on defense and then then attack. He needs the individual quality in attack, and Boomer Vista Tony. Tottenham need to get him some attacking signings, but defensively, he will improve you. Midfield, he will improve you. In attack, he will platform you to your strengths, but he needs good players that can score goals. One thing, Tottenham, how much better do Tottenham look at set pieces under Thomas Frank? Crazy different, crazy better. He is, for me, he knows how to profile players. He knows how to maximize set pieces. Tottenham already look better at set pieces. He knows how to set defensive structure. You know, he can adjust the game plan to opponents' strengths, weaknesses. You know, he's not afraid to go physical against the technical PSG side. But he's got a track record of profiling players correctly, improving players, creating balanced teams, and you can see that. He brings intensity, organisation. He brought a lot today. And you look at players like Bentancur, proper Thomas Frank players, because you just know he's got that mentality. He's going to give 100% and he's going to work hard. And I want to shout out Bentancur and Palhinha because I think they both had a really good game. Palhinha, I think, could struggle in games where Tottenham dominate possession and need to break down low blocks and need a quick progressive passer. But I did my video on why Tottenham signed Palhinha, and I said he's signed for exactly these games, these big games where you need a ball winner, a workhorse. And with Bentancur, he can break the lines. He has good passing ability and was physically dominant. With Palhinha, he was getting the best out of Bentancur. I thought Bentancur wasn't as good when Palhinha went off. Obviously Palhinha went off, not Bentancur. Typo on my behalf. I accidentally wrote when they both came off. I meant when Palhinha came off, Spurs lost midfield control. Bentancur wasn't as good. But they just worked really well together. They would dominate the midfield. And with Sarr just further ahead, pressing, it caused PSG a lot of issues. And I think in the big games, that's the ideal pairing. I think when you want to break down lower blocks, maybe you'll want Bergvall in there with his good passing ability. But it worked really, really, really well. So yeah, Spurs bottled it. The defending wasn't great at the end. The back post defending, all of that. But I do think Spurs bottled it. I'd be really upset if I was a Tottenham fan. I'd be really heartbroken if I was a Tottenham fan. But I'd also say this is the game that, you know, it encourages you going into the start of the season. It gives you signs of what's to come this season. And I think there was positive signs. For 60 minutes, Spurs outplayed one of Europe's best. You could argue 80 minutes, but 60 minutes when you were 2-0 up, set 3. You know, Thomas Frank made Tottenham more compact, harder to beat. Kudus is looking great. Sarr, Bentancur, Palhinha worked well. You just don't have the quality on the bench. He doesn't have Savinho or Eze to bring off the bench. You don't have the quality to come off the bench. PSG did, and that's what made the difference. I think, you know, Spurs maybe went back too defensively, maybe went back too deep. PSG pinned them. You know, Tel couldn't hold up the ball. Solanke couldn't hold up the ball. PSG won through individual brilliance. If you look at Dembele, you look at Vitinha, you know, it was the individual brilliance which caused PSG to win. You know, that was a big reason behind it. But there was positive signs. I think there was definitely positive signs for Tottenham, but I think it shows that they need better depth. And Thomas Frank needs signings to make it work. Anyway, thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.